where's this going to go? So I tuned back in the next day. I wasn't offended by anything he said. Now, granted, I didn't watch all 5 hours of it, but I was not offended by anything he said. You know what I mean? I don't think like he was out of line for trying to make Soros look like a Jewish anti-Semite, because, by the way, Soros himself has been quoted saying some really nasty things about the state of Israel. I don't know if you're aware of that, which Jews have already called this guy a Jewish anti-Semite because of some of his nasty things he said about the state of Israel. So he wasn't saying anything new, and I was like fine with it. But the backlash was a whole shitload, like 400 rabbis or something, basically reform and conservative, you know, and they're heretics. They're not rabbis. They're heretical. Their religion is not Judaism. Their religion is secularism, liberalism, and they got all offended because their guy, who is George Soros, who represents their religion, he's like their rabbi because it's all about money, and he's like, you know, rich, so, you know, he got trashed, so they felt offended, and they demanded an apology from Glenn Beck for trashing this guy and trying to make him out to be an anti-Semite, and they said the most hypocritical thing. Some of them said, you know, it's not for him to decide this, and how dare he call this guy, and, you know, he can't hold it against him. But these same guys, I don't know if you remember this, the same guys a few years earlier when they picked a new pope, they blasted this pope and called him an anti-Semite and a Nazi.
Because he was a member of Hitler's youth.
Because he was a member of Hitler's youth. But, you know, they said, no, you can't say that about Soros. He was a young kid. He didn't know what he was doing. Well, what about the fact that the Pope was a young kid? How come you can hold it against the Pope, but you can't hold it against Soros? You know, my attitude is I hold it against neither of them, right? I don't hold it against either of them, right? Why? How do you be so inconsistent, such a blatant double standard, you hypocrites? Okay, so there's that. So Glenn Beck saw the list of the 400 400 heretical leaders who, you know, claim to be Jewish religious people, and they wrote this letter, and he castigated the whole thing and washed his hands and said, Reform rabbis, right? He said, Reform rabbis don't count as rabbis because they're not following Judaism. They're following, they're actually just a part of a political party. And they're just very political, and they're the Jewish version of, like Al-Qaeda, like the terrorists are for Islam. And that just shot off like a whole thing, and he later apologized this week for it, you know, and he's just been maligned by the liberal left for making such a, he's an anti-Semite and blah 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 blah. Let's get your opinion on all of this.
I'm not a fan of Glenn Beck. I mean, he seems to believe in conspiracy theories, and I'm not a fan of Glenn Beck. I'm not a fan of 80% plus of the pronouncement of Reform rabbis. I don't think that Glenn Beck should have given George Soros a hard time for what he did as a kid trying to survive in the Holocaust, just as I don't think we should give the Pope a hard time for belonging to Hitler Youth. So that's it.
Well, what about his quote? What about his quote of comparing?
I don't think Reform rabbis are like Al-Qaeda. I don't see a resemblance there.
You don't think they're like terrorists?
No.
Do you think he was way out of bounds for making that statement?
I'd have to read the exact statement, but it does sound like it was out of bounds.
Does it sound anti-Semitic?
No, I wouldn't use the word anti-Semitic.
Do you think that Glenn Beck...
I don't think the rabbis signed this statement because of what Glenn Beck said. I think they signed this statement because they hate Glenn Beck and Fox News because they left us, and this was just an opportunity to beat up on him.
Right.
So it's like they caught him saying something stupid, and this was an opportunity where most people could agree that Glenn Beck said something stupid, so this was like a golden opportunity to whack him. I don't think he's anti-Semitic, I just think he says some stupid things. Just like if you watch this show, I think both of us at times say some stupid things. True. Like everyone is like speaking extemporaneously and
all
going
day
up
long.
on the rants.
And
he's
all
going
day
to
long
say some stupid things, but I don't think he's remotely anti-Semitic.
Yeah, that's the whole thing about, George Soros has that Media Matters, right?
Mhm.
I hate that thing because you can't look at a guy who talks for 4 hours every day and cherry pick a statement this week
Right.
and that week and
Right.
then try to paint a picture of the person as being, some sort of kook or some sort of racist or some sort of anti-Semite.
Mhm.
It doesn't work like that, right? I mean, you just can't cherry pick.
Yeah, I can't stand Media Matters.
Yeah.
But how long do I have to sit in the dunce chair?
Okay, let's switch. But no,
Thank
no,
God.
no, wait. I'm switching the chairs and I'm going to stay over on the side.
Okay.
With my neck. I
Okay.
have to be on the side. Okay.
Oh, thank you, Jesus.
You're welcome, my son. Okay, now,
Oh,
how do I
Okay,
turn off
great.
commercials and
don't
ads?
worry about that. Use the Firefox browser and get the ad block.
Right. Now, here's my thing. You want my
Mhm.
take on this?
Hmm.
What did you do to my back wrist?
I didn't do nothing.
You did something to my lumbar. Okay. I want to know who Obvos Michael is. All right, now, here's my take on it. I think Beck got it wrong.
Yeah, you said that.
But no, I think he got it wrong. I mean, really wrong, and I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Reform are not the terrorists. You know who the terrorists are? It's the Frummies. It's people who are Torah observant. And I'll tell you why. Torah fundamentalist, a fundamentalist in Judaism, is someone who takes Torah, takes all of Torah literally, and says these things are binding, and every word of
This is
it,
divine.
it's divine, and everything in here is true, and you can't escape it.
Right.
And if it says this, then you have to do it.
Right.
And people who follow Torah are fundamentalists.
Hmm.
Reform reject all that. And they say, none of that is binding. And today, we don't follow anything. And it's just it's not even a religion. This is where he was right. But it's not a political party. It's a social club.
It's an ethnic group.
It's a cultural club.
Mhm.
It's a social club. And it's not even an ethnic group because they let anybody in. You can just you're in. There's no standards. And it's a joke, and they don't follow anything. In Islam, who are the fundamentalists? It's the guys who are running the jihad and the Sharia law and the terrorists. They're fundamentalists, right? The people who take religion seriously and its authenticity and follow it as it says in the Torah world are Torah observant people like Levi and I. And in the Islamic, it's going to be, guys like, what's that guy's name? Osama bin Laden, right? They are the comparison. So Beck got it wrong. What maps to reform in Islam is the peaceful Muslims here in America who are against jihad and
They're
are against.
secular.
They're secular,
Right.
right? Reform is not it's not part of Judaism. It's not a religion. Their religion is secularism, liberalism, right? Whether you reform, you're conservative, you are following secularism. That's what George Soros follows, and that's what all the list of rabbis follow. They do not follow Judaism. They follow secularism. And I don't care if they all write a big letter against me, because it means nothing. Let them write it. If you call Beckett anti-Semite, bring it. Call me that. I can say it, because you're a bunch of heretics and they mean nothing. The Torah has no room for heretics. None of those people have a share in the world to come.
Now, unlike Judaism, there's no non-fundamentalist Islam. Any Muslim who does not believe that every word of the Quran is divine is no longer a Muslim. So while Christianity had its Reformation and has its liberal mainstream churches, and much of the Roman Catholic Church is quite liberal, and Judaism has Reformed Judaism and Conservative Judaism, which are liberal, and they accept a non-fundamentalist approach to their sacred text. There is no non-fundamentalist approach in Islam. If you do not believe every single word the Quran was given by God to Muhammad, you are not a Muslim. And there is no strand of Islam which accepts any compromise with that. While there are strands of Judaism, such as Reform Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism, which do accept that and advocate that much, if not all, of the Torah is not divine.
So that's what I wanted to bring out, is that Beck missed it. He tried to make a comparison that doesn't work. He should have said Reform are really secular, shouldn't have even brought in, because